The last trumpet will be sounded, and the world will not survive what follows. The Son of Man will appear in the clouds with power and great glory, and what now seems unshakable, governments, markets, alliances, will be laid bare before the only kingdom that has never depended on the earth. Like lightning that flashes across the entire sky in an instant, his manifestation will leave no room for doubt or neutrality. What once seemed firm will begin to give way, and the shaking will not begin in the mountains, but in the real choices each person has made throughout life. Faith will be revealed for what it truly is. Strength will show its true source. History will not change direction. It will reach the point towards which it has always been moving. When that moment begins, there will be no refuge in misinformation or indifference. All will pass through the valley of redemption. Jesus said that his return would be as in the days of Noah. In that time, the earth was filled with violence. Corruption had spread to the point of contaminating the very structure of humanity. The world was not innocent. It was decaying. And yet, it carried on. Marriages were celebrated. Deals were concluded. Houses were built. Plans were made. Wickedness did not halt life. It had become woven into it. Noah raised an ark under the gaze of a generation that had already learned to live alongside its own abyss. There was no lack of signs. What was missing was the conviction that it would truly end. The door of the ark was shut while the world continued at its pace. Today, the surface has changed. The essence has not. There are wars on the agenda, global crises, speeches about imminent collapse. Even so, markets operate, elections are scheduled, journeys are booked, investments are made. The planet debates the end while projecting the next quarter. Deterioration does not interrupt daily life. It settles within it. So it was before the flood. And when the limit was reached, judgment did not begin with public spectacle. It began with fulfillment. The comparison Jesus established moves through the centuries as a silent warning. Humanity can recognize its decay and still trust in continuity. His return will not find merely a world in crisis. It will find a world convinced it can survive its own crisis. And it is that confidence that makes the generation vulnerable. And it is precisely there that the axis of history shifts. The prophets did not speak of a symbolic return. They described a day when the course of history would reach its limit. Daniel saw thrones set in place and dominion given to the Son of Man. Joel spoke of a day that would shake heaven and earth. Zechariah described the moment when his feet would stand upon the Mount of Olives. John recorded a scene in which kings and nations would have nowhere to hide. These images do not arise in isolation. They connect as parts of the same conclusion. For centuries, each generation believed it might witness that moment. The world passed through world wars, devastating epidemics, economic collapses, and religious persecution. Even so, the human system always found a way to continue. Today, something is maturing all at once. Technology has unified the planet in real time. Economies move with a click. Narratives are shaped instantly. Knowledge has multiplied at a speed no previous age has known. At the same time, values that sustained civilizations for millennia are being redefined in full public view. Everything has reached maturity within the same generation. Military conflicts, political instability, global ideological tension, accelerated moral transformation, and technological capacity for control coexist in the same era. Never before have so many structural factors matured simultaneously. At this point, some scholars begin to observe cycles. Nearly 2,000 years approach since the crucifixion. The biblical calendar works with jubilee periods that mark endings and renewals. Rare astronomical patterns reappear within the same historical window. If that point is accurate, the current generation may be living the moment that so many others only anticipated. Not as an official announcement, as a hypothesis that converges with multiple layers of interpretation. Christ said that no one would know the day or the hour. Yet he also declared that there would be a time when the signs would become clear to those who were watchful. The debate over dates may fail. The maturation of the scenario does not. The issue is not getting the calendar right. The issue is recognizing when history reaches a point of saturation. If we are living in that point, the world will continue to function until the moment it no longer does. Business will remain active. Governments will maintain their speeches. Markets will open as usual. And then, in the midst of continuity, rupture. It was so before the flood. It will be so again. And when that limit is reached, there will be no time to reorganize convictions. When that day is revealed, it will not be confusing. It will be exposing. The presence of the Son of Man will not create destinies in that instant. It will make visible what has been forming for years. The separation does not begin in heaven. It begins long before, in repeated decisions, in quiet commitments, in choices that seem too small to define a future. Jesus spoke of the gathering of the nations before him, not as spectacle, but as exposure. Each life will stand in the place it has been shaping over time. The division will not arise from the impulse of a final moment. It will reveal a direction already in motion. For years, it was possible to balance faith with convenience. It was possible to maintain correct language without deep transformation. It was possible to participate in a religious environment while preserving untouched areas. That space existed because there was time. His return closes time. Everything that was postponed will no longer be able to be postponed. What was cultivated away from the eyes of others will come into focus. Motivations never examined will no longer hide behind routine. Commitments assumed only when convenient will reveal their true weight. Scripture says that judgment begins with the house of God. That shifts the focus inward before it reaches the rest of the world. The matter does not begin with distant leaders or global systems, but with those who claimed to recognize the King. Public influence will not be protection. Familiarity with the language of the kingdom will not be evidence of belonging. What sustained each path will be uncovered without intermediaries. At this point, the tension ceases to be collective. It draws near to the individual. Each conscience will be confronted with what it chose to nourish. Priorities treated as secondary will disclose the direction they always indicated. Ordinary life, with its repeated decisions, will show that it was never neutral. Nothing will be improvised on that day. The separation does not create a new reality. It confirms a direction already established. For a long time, it was possible to postpone definitions and maintain a comfortable margin between conviction and practice. When the Son of Man is seen, that margin disappears. The line of division will not be arbitrary. It will follow the trace each person drew throughout their own history. Destiny will cease to be possibility. It will be a settled position, and in that moment, every life will recognize with clarity what it truly became, not by what it professed, but by what it built. The return will not first be perceived as a speech. It will be perceived as impact. The prophet spoke of altered heavens, of unstable earth, of a moment when what seemed fixed would begin to give way, not as religious metaphor, but as rupture in the order that sustains the world. For centuries, humanity has built systems that function because there is confidence in continuity. Governments manage crises. Economies absorb collapses. Institutions pass through wars and reorganize afterwards. The world has learned to survive its own tremors. This event will not be another manageable shock. There will be no strategic recovery after it. The manifestation of the Son of Man does not depend on consensus or institutional legitimacy. It requires no political approval. When it occurs, there will be no time for strategic adaptation. What stands will remain for a moment, and then realize it no longer carries the same weight. Nothing announces the exact second when stability breaks. Markets may be open, statements may be delivered. Long-term projects may be underway. Routine will continue until the point at which it no longer does. The impact will not be confined to external structures. It will reach the human perception of security itself. What once gave coherence to planning will lose its reference. The expectation of the future will be pierced by something that cannot be controlled. Creation accompanies that moment because it has never been neutral. From the beginning, it has carried accumulated tension. Prophetic language speaks of mountains displaced and seas disturbed because the adjustment will not be merely spiritual. It will be structural. The physical world reacts when the center of authority becomes visible. For a long time, human decisions occupied that center. Strategies defined directions. The notion of continuous progress sustained collective confidence. When the Son of Man is seen, that centrality shifts. The sovereignty that always existed ceases to operate behind the scenes. Leaders will realize their limits were narrower than they appeared. The autonomy that shaped civilizations will meet its true boundary. What seemed definitive will reveal its dependence. This displacement will not unfold in gradual stages. It will move across continents, systems, and consciences in the same motion. The world will understand that it had been moving towards this point even while believing it controlled its own course. It will not be an isolated scene in history. It will be the moment when history reaches its limit. And when that limit is reached, no structure will be able to absorb the impact as it has so many times before. The reference shifts. and nothing continues exactly as it was. When the return manifests, each life will occupy the place it has built over time. What rises to the surface in that moment will already have been formed in repeated decisions, in habits cultivated in silence, and in priorities maintained when no one was watching. Judgment will make visible the direction that was already established. The presence of the king brings the era of indecision to an end. Convictions, alliances, and choices will be exposed under a light that reaches intention and motive. The standard will not be appearance, but trajectory. What sustained each existence will stand evident without intermediaries. This event moves through collective history and individual identity at the same time. Structures will be repositioned, yet the deepest impact will reach the conscience. Paths once considered secure will reveal their true substance. Directions treated as secondary will show the weight they always carried over the entire course. The return establishes visible rule over the earth. The authority of the Son of Man takes the center of history and redefines the reference of power. What was built under human administration will encounter a greater limit. Accumulated injustice meets its answer. Violence meets its boundary. Distortion meets correction. The process set in motion at the beginning reaches its coherent conclusion. In this setting, each individual stands before the direct consequence of their own direction. Accumulated knowledge will not determine position. Cultural proximity will not determine position. Repeated speech will not determine position. The life lived will determine destiny. The return does not appear as improvisation at the end of history. It closes a sequence that moves across generations. Humanity advances toward that moment while building, deciding, and choosing. Each generation adds weight to its own path. When the heavens open and the Son of Man is seen, the reference that sustains time and power will be altered. Eternity will take the center of reality and establish a final measure over every existence. In that instant, each life will understand with precision what it has become, and that understanding will be permanent.